Hello, everyone, and welcome to MiniCon. Thank you so much for joining our last MiniCon presentation. So we would like to give, big thanks to all our students for attending all the amazing presentations, and we have one more for you today. If you have missed any of our presentations, we will have it on our YouTube channel. So we will have a playlist of masterclass. So we'll have a link for you in the chat today. If you are an APC or English Unlimited student, we have a great competition for you to enter, which is called the Growth Stories Competition. We will win prizes, could win prizes of a laptop, a JBL speaker, or AirPods, which are some of the best prizes we've ever had. So it's really exciting for you guys, and you should definitely try to submit a video. The video only needs to be a 1-minute video. And you have till 16th September, but you have to be an APC or English Unlimited student. And if you are not an English Unlimited or APC student and you want to know more about APC, you can go to apc.edu.au and find out all the great courses that we run here at APC. So before further ado, let's begin today's MiniCon session, which will be presented by Ben Fenton-Smith and Dr. Rae Cooper. Ben is the Director of International for the Arts, Education and Law faculty at Griffith University, and Dr. Cooper is a lecturer and earlier career researcher at the Queensland College of Art. Now, you're asking about what's the presentation about today, and today's presentation will be about design education. So design is everywhere, but poorly understood by many. Everything that you touch or feel, human-produced goods and services are designed in some ways, and they point to the scale of the design world. This webinar will bring the audience into that world, presenting a state-of-the-art overview of design education. So thank you so much, Dr. Rae and Ben, for joining us.
Thanks so much for having us. We're very excited to be here.
Great. So take it away.
All right. Firstly, I want to say hello to Mariana, because she's already put into the chat, good arvo, with 3 exclamation marks. So well done to you, Mariana. Hello. So keep the chat coming, everyone, because it's the, I think we're the last session. So you might be getting, a little bit tired, and you're thinking, will we go to the last session? Maybe we're going to take the afternoon off and, walk around the house, because maybe you're in Sydney or Melbourne and you've got nowhere to go. Or if you're up here in Queensland, you can go outside and walk around the park or whatever. But why would you do that when you can listen to us? Because something that APC might not have told you is they saved us for last, because, well, I don't want to sort of talk ourselves up, but we are probably going to be the best presentation of this year's MiniCon. So we were told, you guys at Griffith go last. We want you to keep the audience awake and have a great time. So thank you very much for hanging around. And Mariana, keep those comments coming. I'd like another one, please. And a few more participants starting to drop a few things into the chat. So we are, yes, up here in Queensland, and my name is Ben, and my colleague is?
My name is Rae. Nice to meet you all.
And we would like to say a huge thank you to APC for having us. We are from Griffith University. Hopefully everyone can follow along with our slides. Ivan, if that's not working, feel free to tell us. Otherwise, we're going to assume everyone can see our slides. Yeah, we're talking to you from Griffith University, particularly from the part of Griffith University that is called the Queensland College of Art, or QCA for short. And something that our university takes very seriously is social justice. So it's very important to us that we start off with an acknowledgement of country. And Rae, could I ask you to do that, please?
Sure, no problem, Ben. So, as always, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're meeting today. And because we're online, that might be all different lands from around Australia. And we pay our respects to First Nations elders, past and present, and we extend that respect to all First Nations people.
Thank you. So, pressing the button and it's not going to the next slide. Bear with me. There we go. So the title of our presentation is Bridging the Gap Between Design Education and Professional Practice. Okay, so we're going to talk about this so-called bridge between what you might study if you go into design on the one hand, but also what you might kind of do, you know, in a professional sense on the other. And something we want to make clear is that they don't have to be completely separate things. Okay, so it's not like you have to study design, and then several years later start the professional practice. They both mix in together. And in fact, I would like everyone to notice the background to Rae's little box. Okay. Now, is that a fake background, Rae, or is that real?
Well, I can assure you that it is real. It's not a virtual reality background or augmented reality background. It's all my actual stuff.
And the reason I'm pointing that out is because this is the typical office of someone in the QCA. All right. So Rae is our design academic, but as you can see from her office, she's got a few books down there. She's got a few posters up there.
Sure.
She's got all and beautifully swinging the camera around. Love it. Okay. If we have time at the end of our presentation, we might even do a virtual tour of Rae's office because this shows that, you know, the books, I guess, symbolize the study, but all of the other stuff she's got in her room symbolizes the professional practice that she has going. Can I say 24/7? Do you ever take a break from design?
No, when I'm sleeping, I dream about what I'm going to be doing the next day. And then I wake up with a notepad and have to write it all down before I forget. So it's definitely 24/7.
Exactly. And as you can guess from my background, I'm not the designer because, you know, I don't have much on display in my office.
You could be a minimalist, Ben, minimal designer.
That's right. This thing here is just for like rubbing stuff off the whiteboard. That's about as far as I've gone. So yeah, I call myself a minimalist, but we would like you to notice that even if you're, you know, paying attention to my office, the fact is still everything here is also designed. So I'm going to get up and, you know, show you my chair. Okay. I've got a red suitcase here, just in case I need to get out that window in a hurry and leave the country. My window has been designed, and in fact, notice there next to my finger, okay, we have some beautifully shaped bushes. That didn't happen by accident either. So humans are trying to design nature as well. Okay, we've got a lamp post there, which someone also had to design. So returning to our slide here, we start off with this big statement: design is everywhere. Okay, design is everywhere, but poorly understood by many. This is something that my good colleague Rae has taught me. What do you kind of get out of that statement, Rae? Why do you like to sort of say that to, you know, students and random people in the street that you walk past all the time?
Yeah, I often talk to random people in the street and just let them know that design's everywhere and that they should take notice of it. One of the things that I always find interesting is often good design is stuff we don't notice. Bad design is things that we notice. So when you walk up to a door and you accidentally pull it when it should be pushed, I actually blame bad design for that. So design should always help people know how to use and function in a space or with the objects that they have. So good design is often invisible in the things that we don't think about, the things that just work every day and that we seamlessly integrate into our lives. And yeah, I really appreciate hearing you talk about it, Ben, as someone who's not from a design background, to hear, yeah, it's not something that people often think about, right? When they're looking in their office, they think, oh, nothing's designed here, or I don't have a lot of decor or things like that. But everything that we touch, even the air that we breathe, is designed if you're in an air-conditioned space. So we're really lucky to be working in this industry because it's endless and it's infinite and it impacts all things.
That's right. And I really think this lamppost here is a good example. You know, if you look at it up close, it's actually quite beautiful. But most people are walking past it and they're not noticing at all. So I want to pay tribute to the nameless designer that we'll never know, who did sit down and design that beautiful object. So before we go on with our talk, I want everyone listening today to take time out later today, not maybe now, but later today, and notice one thing that you otherwise have never paid attention to, all right, which has been designed by a human. And I want you to appreciate the simple beauty of that design. All right, so there's the first piece of homework. We do give homework at Griffith University, but it's not meaningless assignments, it's meaningful assignments. Okay, moving on. So there's our full contact details. If you do find our crazy presentation today interesting and you want to find out more about what we do, by all means, feel free to get in contact with us. As I've already mentioned, Rae is the real expert. She is the our design lecturer over at the QCA, also international convener there. So that means she's taking care of all of our wonderful international students in particular. And that's something, Rae, I think maybe if you want to say something briefly about that, something we also take very seriously.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a really great and large community of international students at the moment at QCA and across Griffith. Many of them are on campus, but we also have a large group, all different parts of the world, joining us from online. And I think, yeah, one of the things that's quite important to me is the community of international students supporting each other, but also being supported by our domestic or our local students. Because it's been a really tough couple of years, I think, for all students, regardless of whether they're here or overseas, many people missing family and friends. So I'm really proud to work at Griffith, actually, because I think that sense of community and family is something that's incorporated into a lot of our courses, even some assessments when students are off doing group work and visiting design sites or offices together. Yeah, so definitely a highlight of my job is working with all of our international students and supporting them through their program.
And that's something I know APC also do really well, which is one reason we like working together.
Yeah.
So let's get into some interesting content about the design world. And one of our purposes of our presentation today is to teach you a few things that you didn't know 15 minutes ago. All right. So we're going to talk about some really sort of interesting domains of the design world. This is something I didn't know maybe a year or two ago, but I've learned by talking to all the cool staff in the QCA. So we're going to kick off with something that I know is close to Rae's heart, which is visual communication design. And by the way, thank you to Carla, who, Rae, if you don't know, has dropped a comment into the chat box saying, "Cool art prints on your background, Rae." So you've got a fan there.
Yes, thank you so much.
Also said, "I agree, design is for functionality too." Exactly. So
100%.
Let's talk about how functionality can mix in with cool design, as Carla said. And everyone, please keep those comments coming in. We're going to be reading your names out. And I think Ivan can give you some headsets and all kinds of hi-fi equipment if you make the most comments. Now I've just got him in trouble, haven't I? All right. Visual communication design. What on earth is that?
It's a great question, Ben. So often you might hear people refer to it as graphic design, but just I'm going to give you a quick history of myself at the moment. I think everyone's favorite thing to talk about is themselves. I'm no exception. So when I first studied design, it was actually in product or three-dimensional design. And it wasn't until I graduated that I started working as a graphic designer, and I learned a lot of my software skills on the job. But one of the things that I feel really grateful for is the fact that I started with product design, because as you can see here, this middle picture, it is actually the two worlds coming together. So you have 3D objects of products, you have some packaging there as well, with some really cool two-dimensional graphics. So I think that's important when we talk about any type of design, that it's quite rare that you'll have design that kind of is sitting on its own. It's either interacting in a 2D or a 3D or both combined form. Sometimes it's interacting in a space, and this gets a bit sometimes confusing to think about, but it also happens in time, or sometimes we might refer to it as the fourth dimension. So it might incorporate, you know, what's it going to, how is it going to change in the future? Or how does it change in different contexts? If we take different things into different places, does it then mean a different thing? Perhaps it becomes less functional or less beautiful. And again, one of the other reasons I really enjoy working in international classrooms is design can mean different things to different people according to what culture they've grown up in or what place in the world they've grown up in. So design is always changing all the time in that sense. And these three pictures together, I think, display a really diverse kind of idea of what visual communication design can do. So I often find that many students at QCA anyway, they'll come in and they might have like a very specific idea of what they want to do with their visual communication design in their careers. So they might want to be branding designers or work in advertising and things like that. But the reality is those skill sets can apply to many different situations. And so the first image we have there of the exit sign, this is actually the design I enjoy finding the most. So when Ben gave you that challenge to look in your environment and find design, have a look outside as well. So if you're at home right now, think about it next time you're out in the supermarket or you're in a place you've never been before. How do you know where the exit is? How do you know where the door is? How do you know whether to push or to pull that door? How do you know you're allowed in that space? And do you ever sometimes see design that tells you that space is not for you or you're not allowed to go into that space? But signage is especially important. And I think one of the things that we often don't think is very exciting as designers, but signage is one of those things when it's working well, we don't even think about it because it's telling us where to go and we look past the design and we're on our way. So yeah, that public signage is really, really important. And then it's also really interesting to me to think about design from different people's perspectives. So again, when I work with a lot of international people, I'm often thinking, how easy is my design to understand for someone that might have English as a second or additional language? Things like vision impairment. So working with people that might not have their full eyesight, how will they see that sign? Is it clear? Do I need to add something else? Do I need to add something that's textural or some type of other way of communicating? So public signage is the first one there in that picture that I think represents a really wide range of what we can use visual communication design for. Is that something you think about, Ben, when you're out in public spaces? Do you ever take notice of the signage?
I since I've become more educated about design, I think about it more. And now my academic background is linguistics, and where your field and my field join together in a way is public signage. Something that fascinates me is the case of the nuclear waste that is buried in, and I think nuclear weapons as well, that's underground in the desert in America. I think Rae, I might have told you about this example before, but obviously nuclear weapons and nuclear waste is incredibly dangerous, and it's going to stay dangerous for tens of thousands of years, because that's how long it takes to stop being toxic. So I don't know if you know, Rae, but if you go into New Mexico, and if you were to go far, 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 far underground where the nuclear waste is currently stored, on the vault that leads into it is signage, which is designed to still communicate the danger of it, even if our species was wiped out. Let's say all human life ended, and then 40,000 years from now, somehow some other creatures have come up and they discover that stuff under the ground. It's designed in such a way to still communicate to them, do not enter because you'll die. So that's pretty interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, super amazing. And there's a similar, I think I'm vaguely remembering this conversation now, but there's a similar, I don't know if they still do it, but there's an image that a graphic designer created that goes out into space in case there's any other intelligent life in another solar system. And so they've actually created graphics that communicate what someone thinks is the most important elements of Earth. So the fact that there's people here, I don't know, other sciencey things, but how far away we are from the sun. So again, I think so interesting. So if you're designing for someone who might not even have eyeballs, might not have hands, might not see the same colors we see, definitely won't speak the same language, how do you communicate really complex things? So such an interesting field, and something that I think is always going to be around, because it's not to do with how well you use the software or anything like that. It's totally about how much of a creative thinker you are and how much of a problem solver you are, and also being interdisciplinary. So like Ben said, it actually crosses over into linguistics as well. It's one of the other really great things about design is we're constantly having collaborations with people outside of design. That's also where a lot of cool stuff happens.
I think of all those amazing jobs you can do, by being a designer.
That's it.
We have a good reaction from our audience, Rae, from Sebastian. So shout out to Sebastian, who has agreed with a lot of things that we've been talking about and can relate to them, because Sebastian is an actual industrial designer, and he's worked in the graphic design world. He's studying it, and as he says, properly at APC. So good on you, Sebastian. Keep that up. And we've got a comment also popped up from Chris. I click on the name, Christina. Hi, Christina. This is great. It's exactly what I'm thinking. Good. Geez, we're getting some good reactions here. I always notice little details around me. Every time I'm entering space, I scan it visually and think what works well and what is not. Good on you, Christina. So you're on our wavelength. I love that exit sign on the PowerPoint, actually. Simple, Times New Roman font, probably size 680, and a little carré, whatever they call. Get out here.
Yeah.
Simple, but it works well.
That's it. Yeah. We've
spoken for about 23 minutes on the one slide.
So sorry, Ben, that's my fault.
I'm going to move to the next one. Okay. Bear with me as my... Okay, next we're going to move on to the topic of product design. Okay, that's two words we're very familiar with, product and design. Is it just about designing things? Is that what it means?
So much more than that. So again, like you're right. Ben, you amateur, you design amateur. Yeah, but it's definitely what most people think. It's about designing products and things that go into shops, and that's kind of the end of it. But these three pictures don't even demonstrate so much of what happens in product design. So product design is not always about the end product. It's about the process that we go through to create a product. And with all of the issues we're having with the climate and excess waste and landfill, it's so important at the moment that it always has been important that we consider the waste associated with creating new products, and what happens to a product after it stops being useful. So For years, there's been a trend in recycling, but we're very quickly realizing that recycling just delays a product's journey into landfill. It doesn't actually save it from getting there in a lot of cases. So before all of the process that happens before seeing a product is something that is a really interesting field as well. And yeah, there's workshops at the moment that are aiming to have zero waste. So every kind of offcut, every piece that might be considered not part of the final product, they're keeping those and then finding a way to incorporate them into the next product. So I find that really interesting. And even going beyond that, so this first image here, you can see a picture of a person in a wheelchair, but they're on a surface that looks kind of rough and uneven, and they're outside. So I love this picture because it communicates how product design can work with the body, but all different types of bodies. And also for people that want to go out in different environments, you know, how boring would it be if you're constantly on a flat surface indoors and quite limited to where you go? So things like wheelchairs and accessible design help people go out and experience the world, in many different ways. So I think that's a really, really important field, as we're now, we're at a stage in the world where we're recognizing and appreciating and respecting that there are lots of different people with lots of differences, and not everyone's body works the same. So there's a huge area of product design that's around helping people participate in the world that best suits them. And the good old place.
You even managed to find a picture of my shoes on the right hand side.
Were they yours, Ben? I wasn't quite sure. I thought they looked a little bit.
No, well, now you've outed me. Now, I want to ask you a question, Rae, which is, I think, a really good question, and it's actually popped up in the Q&A from my good friend Carolyn, and I think a lot of people wonder about this. What if, like me, all right, we're very weak with hand drawing or illustrations? So can you still be a good graphic designer, in your opinion?
100%. So not only graphic designers, but all designers. And I think, again, in my experience of being at QCA over about 10 years now, I think most of my first year students arrive feeling like their illustration or hand drawing skills aren't good. But it may be true. Not everyone can draw. Some people just aren't good at it. And no matter how they try, it just doesn't work for them. But illustration and drawing serves many different purposes. So I don't actually think I'm very good at drawing. But what I can do is, if I'm in a meeting with a client, or even if I'm talking to a student, I can do enough marks on the page to get the picture out of my head and put it on paper to transfer it to someone else. So the job of that picture is not actually to be beautiful. It's not to be finished. It's just, again, to visually communicate a message. So I think that is an important skill for all designers, to be able to communicate in lots of different forms. But we're also seeing, so many amazing changes and advancement in technology that's helping people. So like I said, I'm not a very good drawer or illustrator myself, but not long ago, I discovered the app Procreate, which no one never taught me, but I downloaded a couple of YouTube tutorials and spent a few hours, and it's absolutely amazing what you can produce with that software without having skills that you might think you need a pen and paper to draw. So I think it's something that everyone should consider might be useful. I think no one should ever kind of cross something off to say, no, I'm not going to do that. Drawing is something that you can practice over time, and you can do drawing classes, you can develop a lot of skills over time, but not everyone's going to become a famous illustrator. But I don't think that's necessary. It's more about being able to use pen and paper or whatever technology you have to communicate ideas. So basically to get the picture out of your head and put it on paper so someone else can see it.
Good stuff. All right. There you go, Carolyn. So you're going to be a designer one day. Keep those questions coming in, and comments, particularly ones saying that you're enjoying our chat, because that makes us feel good. Yep. All right. Moving on to our third one. I think we're going to talk about 5, maybe 6 domains of design. So we're on our third one now. Okay. Interior and spatial design. So we've already talked about this a little bit. Everyone appreciates my minimalist office, and I think they're enjoying your probably cooler space.
Maximalist.
But interior and spatial design is about more than just, say, me choosing white for my walls. I'm going to assume. Is that right?
100%.
What does that kind of, encapsulate and include?
I think I've probably said it about every slide so far, that every slide is my favorite, or every area of design is my favorite. But again, they all cross over and I find them all really interesting. And again, spatial design and interior design is such an important thing now more than ever in this COVID world, where we have to be very conscious of how far away we are from people. And you can see these are mainly cafe images here. So it's been really interesting to see how many restaurants, cafes, shopping centers and all other public places have adjusted their floor plans or their interior spaces so people can move around freely, or so they can adhere to new safety standards that happen. So often we think, when we're making these changes throughout the world or even throughout the country or a city, they take so long. But it's been amazing to me that in a very short amount of time, so many places have been able to adjust their interior spaces to make sure that they can stay open and keep everyone safe at the same time. But interior and spatial design is not just about the curtains you have or the pillows you pick or the furniture you buy. It's about how people move and live throughout those spaces. So like I said earlier, you might find that you might go into a store and you don't feel very welcome there. Why is that? Is it something to do with how the store is laid out? Is it something to do with the images in the store or the advertising? And on the other hand, you go into some places and you could spend forever in there and you feel really comfortable. It's got a really nice atmosphere. So a lot of that does come down to the spatial design or the interior design. But even again, if we go out kind of another circle of complexity, think about the world being a very global place. It's unfortunate that many parts of the world, have had to be evacuated, or we have refugees or, large groups of people that need to travel to other places. Interior and spatial design also talks about how people, survive in those circumstances and how do they get shelter. Can we create shelter that pops up very quickly that suits the needs of those people? Can we, and then if we do that, what happens after the shelter isn't needed anymore? Does it go into landfill? Can it be kind of unpacked and used again somewhere else? So more and more people are looking for those types of design outcomes, and they need to employ people who have creative thinking skills to work through those questions. Because of many reasons, the world's changing faster than it ever has before, and we need to think of different ways to live in the world. We can't all have mansions full of stuff. That's not going to end well for anyone. We're going to run out of space. We're going to run out of resources. And there's going to be lots of waste. And obviously not everyone can afford that. So interior and spatial design asks a lot of these questions. And it's not just about the space or the physical space or the furniture. It's definitely also about understanding how people interact in that space and what people need. And how they interact over time. And
maybe how people interact with the environment. I'm taking it, like if we look at that central image there, something that I'm picking up from that is, again, coming back to the functionality. So it's got those pipes at the top and plants. And I think we could say on the one hand, well, it looks cool, but I'm sure that's also part of the designers have thought about the airflow, the kind of environmental aspect of it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. And there's actually a whole field of research around how, like, bringing the outside in, so bringing the elements of the outside world and nature into spaces that aren't natural. And there's actually, again, a whole field of research that talks about nowhere in the world being natural anymore, because everything has been impacted by technology or impacted by people. So especially with climate change, in natural environments are changing over time. Resources are being taken and moved into other places. So yeah, the tension or the interaction between nature, people, built environments is a huge field of design that really needs a lot of people to be skilled at, so we don't continue making mistakes that we've made in the past in terms of sustainability and climate change.
And with climate change, an absolute certainty to unfortunately become a bigger challenge, this is a part of the design world which is going to be just crucial to our very existence.
100%.
I think about that a lot up here where we live, just because, like, I'm not actually from Queensland originally, and you move up here and it's just so hot anyway, and then you think, what's it going to be like in 20 years time living here? So I kind of find it interesting, a lot of the old houses up here, often raised above the earth, and you can actually walk around under the house, and so you get the airflow coming through, and in a way that looks old fashioned, but I think it's going to be coming back, because just trying to put an air conditioner in every single room to survive the temperatures we're going to have, is not going to be practical. So I'm sort of guessing we're going to see a lot more design moving towards thinking about airflow and temperature and how we can have spaces that interact in the right way with the environment.
Yeah, 100%. And you touched on a really key point there. So like how we survive in spaces. So again, I'm sure everyone's sick of hearing about COVID, but it is such an interesting influence of design at the moment, because we've got so many people spending so much time inside, and not at the gym and not at the beach and not at all of these other places. And we're finding that the interior environments more than ever are having a really big impact on people's mental health and well-being. So again, another huge industry that relies on interior and spatial designers to come up with solutions that can help people through different situations when they might be stuck in their environment.
Good stuff. All right. Moving on to our next one. Now we're getting to, I think, the last two, which are quite...
Your favorite?
These terms, I'm always saying to Rae, okay, well, tell me again, what is this? What is this part of design? Because for us outsiders, it can be hard to wrap our head around. So immersive design, okay, yeah. Telling me that somehow we are immersed in something, obviously. What's going on here? What's going on in these images?
Yeah, and this is definitely like, you're not alone, Ben. I think most people find this confusing, but the reason they do is because it is such a new field of practice. So I think when I say the word, visual communication designer, people kind of know what that is because they're used to seeing magazines and advertising and stuff. But when I say immersive design, people are more progressively interacting with this stuff, but because technology changes so quickly, I think a lot of the terms don't catch up. But again, just like all of the other slides, these ones are my favorites. So I love these kind of fields because I think they're the future essentially of a lot of our traditional design practices. So immersive design has a lot of overlaps with product design and visual communication design. And it's not my area, so I know I'm not the best person to talk about it, but the way I explain it to people is that immersive design is about screen-based things and immersing ourselves in digital environments or augmented environments or virtual environments. And again, a technology that's becoming really accessible really quickly. So I think 5 years ago, no way in the world would I ever consider, how I can use this technology myself in my own practice. But now when I talk about these crazy design ideas I have with my immersive design friends, they will say, yeah, you can download that software. It's open source. It's free online. Let's have a go and work it out. So I think that's really interesting that a lot of this technology is not, it used to be so expensive. that only designers who could afford certain technology, software and hardware could use it. But yeah, immersive design seems to have a bigger open source culture, which is great.
I could potentially go into like a room like the person on the left and then say, well, bring up my mobile phone and, oh, I can imagine having a yellow chair in that spot.
We don't even need to use your imagination because the phone tells you what it looks like.
Phone's telling me.
Yeah, I don't know if this is an image from IKEA, but I'm pretty sure IKEA has this feature now where you can pick the piece of furniture that's at IKEA. You download the app on your phone and you scan your room and it will put the piece of furniture in your room so you can make sure it's the same size or the right size. You can make sure that the color works in your space. So instead of going to IKEA and spending a year there and getting lost, you can just do it on your phone and you can solve that problem. And yeah, imagine if you might live 5 hours away from IKEA and you don't want to go there and find that the chair you were looking at doesn't fit your space anyway. So it's a really great way to make decisions before you get there. So a lot of businesses are using this stuff, and I've seen some fashion ones as well. So you might scan yourself and you can change clothes, hairstyles. The Pokemon game was another example, and that was huge. So I think, again, because this technology, so many people have a smartphone at the moment, it's a really great way to reach people, and people find that type of technology really easy to work with. And this is kind of like, I think these images are very opposite. So you see, the one with the chair, it's about selling things and it's about getting information really quickly and connecting with stores and buying stuff. But the other image of the person meditating is immersive design in the opposite way. So it's actually about escaping the environment that you're in and going to somewhere. She could be sitting on a beach right now. She could be sitting on the moon. She could be sitting in a beautiful field. So, to relate back to the earlier one, imagine if you're constantly stressed all the time and you need help meditating, then immersive design can help you with that as well. So, virtual environments or changing your environments using digital technology. That's probably like the easiest way I can think of to describe what it is. But I think it'll be complicated to talk about for a few more years just because it is so new and it's such a great emerging field of practice to work in.
Well, that's literally mind-blowing. So now, this is our last one, interaction design. Okay, yeah, so if we go to the right-hand side, there's a kind of one of those Fitbit type watches, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an example of interaction design?
100%. Yeah. So interaction design and immersive design get confused quite often. So one of the big differences, I think, is, and this is not true for everyone who works in this field, there's always people that do, things in a different way. But interaction design for me is about how people interact with physical technology, whereas the previous one was more digital technology or things that are screen-based. So you can definitely see some screens here, but it's, people interacting with physical things. So the Fitbit is definitely a great example. So the fact now that we can add technology to our body to tell us certain things, it's an example of interaction design. And the one with the ball on the left that says play, this is really interesting to me. So I've got a colleague who works a lot in digital music or electronic music. And there's always these different objects that make different sounds. So this ball is actually, as it says there, the first ball in the world to make music. So basically every time you throw it or you catch it or you hit it against something, it creates a beat like a drum. So if you've got a rhythm, it's essentially an instrument. And then it's also reacting to the surface that it touches and your hand. So amazing, right?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know Rae was going to be talking about this audience, So we collaboratively came up with the presentation, but the stuff like that, I didn't realize that was going to come out. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing. All right. So those are the 5 areas of design that we wanted to talk about. Now we just want to finish off. I know time's getting short, so we'll just finish off. I think probably everyone in the audience has got the message by now that, design is obviously applicable everywhere, and we often think of when we do a uni degree or study something at a college or whatever, that, you know, you want to do something like nursing when there's a clear job that comes out at the end. But design, clearly, there's so many jobs in it because it's just sort of everywhere. So we wanted to just mention this recent report. This is an Australian government report by the National Skills Commission. As you can see, it's 2021, so this has only just come out. Now, what does the National Skills Commission do? Well, it provides independent intelligence on Australia's labour market. So they come up with this thing that's called the Skills Priority List. And one thing they talk about is, okay, what jobs are going to be really important in the future? And where do we see, you know, occupations that are going to be big in the future? Now, Rae and I thought this was interesting because when we looked at the jobs of the future that they mention in the report, look how many are related to design. Okay, so if you just go through that list, you've got fashion designer, jewelry designer, graphic designer, web designer, interior designer, illustrator, multimedia specialist, metal fabricator, construction project manager, project builder, sculptor. I think that should be patents, probably my spelling mistake. Examiner, hardware technician. And we actually had to shorten the list because otherwise the PowerPoint slide was going to have too much text on it and overload everyone. So clearly there are a lot of occupations that you can move into if you do design. And it's, you know, we just wanted to make the point that this isn't us just talking. This is even what a very recent government report is talking about. So just to finish off then, we'll bring it back to our university. So we have a Bachelor of Design. We also have a Master of Design. Rae works in it. So maybe, Rae, do you just want to say a little bit about the program that you're involved in over at QCA?
Yeah, sure. So I teach in both the Bachelor and the Master of Design. And we have students across all of those fields that I was just talking about. So like I said, there's many kind of connections between all of those areas of design. So what we do is we get everyone in the first year to do a foundation year where we teach the basics of most things. It's great because it allows students to get a taste of things that they might not have considered. So if you kind of still aren't really sure what immersive design is, for example, you get to do the entry or the foundation course for immersive design. So lots of students find that they're really interested in or talented at things that they hadn't considered before that foundation year. And the master's program is also really interesting. So all students do a major project in a field that relates to their background. And the great thing is it's not all design students. So we have students from accounting, we have students from totally non-creative areas, but what they're doing is using design thinking and different types of design technology to investigate and create their own projects. So it's always amazing to see what those students come up with. I know I'm very biased, but I feel very lucky to come to work every day because it's constantly people talking about the most amazing things and students being really inspired about the world around them. And not just, you know, thinking about making expensive products all the time, but, you know, really thinking about how they can use design to have a positive impact on the world. So, yeah, it's always really fun and really inspiring. So I feel very lucky.
And it's great to have a job where you truly want to come in and, you know, do it. All right. And needless to say, graduates end up in all kinds of interesting places, don't they, Rae? There's a few that you've listed off on that slide there.
Yeah. And it's hard for us sometimes to track where our students go because they're going to all these crazy places all around the world. But you'll notice there's some pretty big companies there. And like I said at the beginning, you know, I started in 3D design and ended up in graphic design, and now I'm a design researcher. So I think that's also really important that, you know, you're never locked into one field of design. These things always transfer over to other areas, and they're always customizable to what you're interested in as an individual. So yeah, design, I think great design is always about flexibility and just responding to the time and the place where you are.
Awesome. Okay. And once again, there's our contact details. So if you want to scribble down any of those details, I'm sure Ivan can tell us later if I'm sure our PowerPoint must be going to the audience anyway, but feel free to contact us. So if you are interested, I know there's a couple of questions in the chat about further study after APC at university level. We can absolutely help you out in that way. We're going to move to question time now. I know there's some questions already in the chat. Ivan, is it okay if I just go ahead and answer a couple of those, or did you want to jump in at this point?
I think Rachel has a few questions collected from different places, so I'm sure Rachel's going to ask a few questions.
I can read them to you, Ben. So the first one we have from Carolyn. She said, what if we're quite weak with our hand drawing and illustrations? Can we still be a good graphic designer? Do you have any suggestions for this?
All right. Now, Rachel, I'm going to dob you in and say you probably got a cup of tea, didn't you? Because we answered that one during our talk.
It's always good to highlight it again, I think.
I can confirm that I am bad at illustration and I've had a successful design career. So definitely possible because everyone has strengths in different areas. So should practice illustration if you have the opportunity, but if you aren't good at it, it doesn't mean you can't work in creative industries.
Fantastic, cool. And then the question from Carla, she said that she loves your presentation, loves the energy. She's currently studying an advanced diploma of marketing and communication at APC. And she has a bachelor's degree from back home in multimedia arts. Would it be possible to go into a master's of design at Griffith without having done a bachelor's in Australia?
I think so. Enrollment and kind of program questions always scare me a little bit because I think it's important to have all of the information before we give the answer. So I think what I would recommend is emailing Ben or myself with the question, and then what we can do is go and check with the admissions team and make sure that everything's good to go. But from my experience in the Master of Design, we have many students from many different places that have completed lots of different degrees. So I'm sure it's possible. We just have to check that the pathway is right.
Great.
And I've just put an answer in there for Carla. I'm sure you'll be fine, but and we'd love to have you. But the thing is, just contact me on the email address I just sent you, and we will talk to you about that personally.
Fantastic. Okay, and just one more question here. How can you make yourself stand out as a designer when you're going for interviews, when you're trying to get your first job?
Yeah, such a great question. And I don't know if I don't think there is one right answer for this. I think every job you go for, whoever is offering the job is going to be looking for a different thing. So what might make you stand out for one person doesn't make you stand out to someone else. Not something that we really spoke about at the moment, but one of the other things to think about with design and employability and careers is that you're not always limited to just what design positions other people are offering. Many designers actually go into entrepreneurial practice or creating their own business or looking for their own opportunities or creating their own jobs. So I think that's really key to know that, you're not limited. Like Ben said, if you go into something like nursing, perhaps you can't go off and be a freelance nurse. I don't think, you have to apply for that particular job. But I know when I'm looking for freelance designers, I'm really impressed by people that just have a passion for design and love what they do. I really appreciate people who are happy to receive feedback when it's good and bad, and they, don't get kind of upset or offended. Because as a designer, we're never perfect and the work is never perfect, and it's always about feedback and improving the work we do. Attention to detail, I think, is another great thing. But yeah, understanding who you are and what makes you different, only you can really know the answer to that. But yeah, everyone has a different answer to that question as well, I think. So I hope there was enough information in there to be helpful.
I think that was beautifully answered. Just one more question here, actually two more, sorry. In terms of immersive design, it says, does it work with all kinds of design? Is there an app that I can use on my phone?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think to me, all of those areas of design all interact with each other. So immersive design can work with interior design, like the example we gave with the furniture going into the space. Immersive design works with graphic design. I've seen some artists who use the apps to actually change advertising. So there was a project about body image where you could scan a billboard that might say, remember ages ago, there were those billboards, is your body beach body ready summer or something. So the person made a app where you could scan the billboard and it would have a body positive message instead. So that's a great example of VisCom, or visual communication design. And again, with the furniture example, or even fashion, it ties in with, creating apps that support people making good decisions when it comes to that. And there's also a growing number of applications and platforms that support that technology. It changes so quickly. I think that's the most difficult thing, is keeping up to date with the different types of technology that's available.
Fantastic.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, sure.
Can I jump in, Rachel, just to cover off a theme that's come up in a few of the questions? Because looks like a lot of people might, be interested in a career in design or further study in design. Just to mention, with Griffith, you don't have to already be a designer to enter the program, whether that's if you're entering a bachelor level or master's level. We are interested in students who are interested in design, but maybe your first degree or previous study was in something completely different. Don't think you can't do design for that reason. So we are open to students who might have done something completely different beforehand. So just contact us if you are interested. There were several sort of questions around that, and some. I also just wanted to mention that Jacqueline asked about scholarships. So Jacqueline, yes, we do have scholarships for international students. There's a link there if others are interested as well that I gave to in response to Jacqueline's question. So that
did you put that one in the chat again, maybe?
Yes, it's in the Q&A at the moment.
Yeah,
I can also
maybe pop
put
it
in the chat.
In the chat would be a good idea.
All right.
One last question. Do you think it's better to specialize in a specific skill and niche practice, or do a bit of everything when it comes to the graphic design industry?
That's such a controversial question. I don't know even what I think the answer is, honestly. So I think I'm going to put a third option in there. So I think the best way to go is to be someone who's adaptable. So like I said, in my profession, I studied 3D design, and then I started work as a visual communication designer. And I think the only reason I could do that is because I was able to teach myself really quickly how to use the software and how to pick up those skills that I didn't have before. So I think if you do have a niche, obviously it's going to be great that you're a specialist in that small area. The danger is, though, if someone else comes in and they're better at you in that small area, what are you going to do then? So then if you are great at everything, it's also really good, because it means you're really your skills can transfer to lots of different places, but it might mean that you're not really amazing at anything. And it might also mean that, what is your passion if you're doing everything all the time? But what it does mean is that you're probably flexible enough to go into a range of different jobs and do lots of different things. So again, there's no real right or wrong answer to that one, but my advice is always to be flexible. So I think throughout my career, there's been times where I've had to be a specialist in certain things. And then in other times, I'd have to be very general and do lots of different things and learn new stuff really quickly.
Great. That was awesome. I think that brings us to the end of our questions. I'm going to hand it over to Ivan now, who will finish up for today.
Thank you so much. That was really engaging and interesting, and I can see all these amazing messages that students really loved it. So thank you, guys. And
thank you so much for inviting us. It's been really fun. We really enjoyed doing this too.
I'm sure we're going to look around and see what's design now, because, we take design.
Don't forget your homework, everyone.
100%. Yeah.
Give some specific
I've got
homework. What should we do?
I've got my poll here. I'm going to appreciate this poll again.
All right, thank you so much. So that is the end of MiniCon. You were right, Ben, the best for last. And don't forget, APCA and English Unlimited students, we have our biggest ever competition, which is the Growth Stories, where you can win a laptop, a JBL speaker, or AirPods. So please submit your video by the 16th of September, and you must be an APC or EU student to enter. Apart from that, that is it from us. That is the end of MiniCon. Thank you so much for all of you for joining us. I'm sure some of you might want to watch this again, or might want to, if you've missed some of our previous presentations, might want to watch that. So we have all the videos on our YouTube channel. We'll have them soon. And we will have a playlist called Masterclass. So don't forget to check them out. That's it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and goodbye.